Today we're going to start with something called verb conjugations and infinitives. So verbs come in two types. They come in infinitives and they come as conjugated verbs. Alright, so let's break that down. What does each of those mean? Well, infinitives are verbs before a subject. Okay? So in English, we're used to talking about verbs with subjects. John eats. Tim plays. Bruce walks. All of those sentences have a subject, the person doing the action, and the verb, the actual action. So we can say John walks, and we know that we're talking about John. However, if we take that same verb, walks, and we remove the subject, what we're going to be left with is something called an infinitive. Alright, so we can't just say walks and leave it by itself. The original form of that verb is to walk. Okay, let's say Bruce eats. Okay, that verb is matching Bruce. Eats comes from the original form of the verb to eat. Right? We play. Okay, the original form of the verb play, before you attach a subject to it, is to play. So all of those are infinitives. They're the verbs before you attach a subject to it. It's to play before it becomes I play and he plays and we play. Okay, so those are infinitives. In Spanish, we know infinitives because we've been studying them for a little while. You just haven't known what they're called. So infinitives are verbs like comer and jugar and estudiar and escribir. Okay? Basically, infinitives are anything that translate as to verb. Okay? Jugar is to play. Comer is to eat. Estudiar is to study. Escribir is to write. So all infinitives in Spanish come in three types. They all come as AR ending verbs, or ER ending verbs, or IR ending verbs. And you've seen several of each example. So jugar is an AR verb. Comer is an ER verb. Escribir is an IR verb. Hablar is an AR verb. Correr is an ER verb. And salir is an IR verb. Patinar, beber, tener, and we can keep going on and on and on and on. So basically all verbs in Spanish, all infinitives in Spanish end with AR, ER, or IR. So what happens when you take off the AR, ER, IR endings in Spanish? Well, what happens is you're left with something called the stem of the verb. So let's take a look at the stems for each of these verbs. So we have jugar. If we take off the ending, the AR ending, we're left with the stem, jug. If we take off the ending from hablar, we're left with abo. If we take off the AR ending from patinar, we're left with patin. Okay, same thing for comer. If we take off the ER, we're left with com. Correr, we take off the ER, we're left with cor. So those are called stems, the jug, the abo, the patin. Those are your stems. So that's basically the basis of conjugating. So now we're going to go over here to conjugated verbs. Conjugated verbs are verbs that match a subject. Okay? So let's start with some things that you already are familiar with. Subjects, or let's do subject pronouns. Okay? Subject pronouns are the people that do the actions. So we've been studying these for a while now, and the subject pronouns are things like yo and tú and él and ella and usted. And we have nosotros, and we have and as I was saying, we have tú, and we have él. Come on, él. We have él, we have usted. All right, over here on this side, we're going to do the plural form of tú, which is vosotros. We're going to do the plural form of él, which is ellos, and the plural form of ellas, and the plural form ustedes. So those are our subject pronouns. Okay, so now, if we have the people, we have to make the verb match the people. So here's the way it's going to work for the first type of verb, which over here is AR verbs. Okay, so we're going to just focus on AR verbs first. So let's see what AR verbs do. So AR verbs, okay? Let's start with yo, then we'll do tú, then we'll do él again, ella, usted. Okay, so what happens with AR verbs? Well, with AR verbs, what you do is you take off the AR ending and you add a new ending. So for AR verbs, what you would do is you would take the verb, let's do nadar. Okay, let's take off the AR ending, and so we're left with the stem nad, 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 nad. Okay, a little redundant. Let's just throw in nosotros and vosotros and ellos, and that's a L, and ustedes. Okay, we'll throw in those forms too. Again, let's finish off with the stems for each of these. Alright. And what we do is we add a new ending to each of these stems. So for yo forms, we're always going to add that same ending. For yo forms, we're going to add the letter O. So now we have yo nado. For tú forms, we're going to add the letters AS. Now we have tú nadas. For él, ella, and usted forms, we're going to add the same letter, which is A. Él, ella, usted, nada. For nosotros forms, we're going to add the amos. So we have nadamos. For vosotros form, we're going to add ais. There should be an accent over the A. Nadáis. Ellos, ellas, ustedes, we're going to add an. So we have ellos, ellas, ustedes, nadan. Okay? So the basic pattern is you take off your AR ending from the verb and you add your new ending. So again, what are those new endings? Well, for AR verbs, one more time, I'm just going to take apart the ending here. That way it's easier to see. For AR verbs, you add O for the yo form. For AR verbs, you add as for the tú form. You add a for the él, ella form. You add a for the usted form. You add amos for the nosotros. You add ais for the vosotros. And you add an for the ellos, ellas, ustedes form. So basically, that's how you get to a conjugation. Once you know this pattern, once you know these endings, you can conjugate any AR verb. I could give you the AR verb that you've never seen before, like averiguar. Averiguar, you don't know what that means, and you can still conjugate it because you know how to do it. You know that there's a stem. The stem for averiguar is going to be what? Think about it, think about it, think about it. It's going to be averiguo. Okay? It's going to be averig. Averig. Alright, so that's enough. You get the idea. I'll just use those. Okay? So if you want to say I verify, which is what averiguar means, you add an O, and you would say averiguo. You want to say you verify, you add AS. Tú averiguas. You want to say he or she verifies, you add an A. Averigua. Okay? So that's basically the idea of conjugating verbs. That's your AR verbs. O, as, a, amos, ais, an. O, as, a, amos, ais, an. If you can memorize that, then you can conjugate any AR verb. Okay? I'll follow up with ER and IR verbs.